Welcome to episode 7 of Manuscripting Pod, a show where I talk about writing, explore procrastination, and attempt to keep my inner critic hogtied and in the corner. In this episode, I'm discussing creating structure when it's needed, or structuring unstructured time. So for reading, excitement, I'm reading Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin, a book about habits. I have run into the issue that my local library stocks a great deal of books with a substantial religious flavor or religious overtone, which most of which don't do really well for me, but also means that I can't suggest them to clients, which is part of what I'm doing. I mean, this is professional development, and I like to have a library of books that I can suggest to clients that they can use to help them further their education, if you will. So, Better Than Before is not just one of the few that I've cracked open that doesn't have a substantial religious overtone. So it's got some stuff that I don't like, but it's got a lot of stuff that I do like. So it's something that is actually going to go into my library for suggestion. Also in terms of excitement, the Les Fic Slack does a monthly author Q&A. It's always great to be able to ask an author about their process. The chats are saved, so you can go back and read the old chats. I always find it really interesting to be able to ask the author questions, oftentimes during the chats. I'm recording an episode of RSVP, so I don't get to participate. This time I did get to participate, so that's exciting for me. So last week I talked about needing structure to structure my unstructured time. That's a very complicated way of putting I don't do well without structure. As a counterpoint to last week's episode, I wanted to tell you about a time when I did keep myself focused and motivated on my work. It's a story about art, but I think it still applies to, or the lessons from it, if you will, still apply to writing. So, back in my early to mid-20s, I was a teacher. I enjoyed teaching. Sometimes I still miss teaching, but part of the deal back then, and I'm sure still now, with being a teacher is having that summer off. Back then I had 2.5 months off, and I did not get paid during that time because of the setup of the school system. I think I had my choice of how I was going to get paid, but I didn't choose to get paid during the summer because I felt that I was going to be able to find a job, and the reality of it was I couldn't find a job because no one wanted to hire someone who they knew was going to leave at the end of the summer. So basically, it was all on my art to make ends meet. I ended up having to do a lot of things to make ends meet with my art that I wouldn't necessarily have had to do if I'd had a part-time job. So the apartment that I had back then was relatively inexpensive, and it was owned by family, so I knew I wasn't going to be homeless if I wasn't able to make my rent. That said, I was very proud, and I wanted to make my rent. And it was the early days of eBay, and I was an early adopter of eBay. I would get up literally at dawn and drive someplace in the area and draw and paint. Generally, it involved hiking as well, which was always nice. So I would drive about an hour away from my home. I'd go to West Quoddy Head, Cobscook Bay. I'm trying to think of all of the other places I went. I think I did Bar Harbor at least once. I did a lot of different places. So anyway, I would prep myself or prep my bag the night before. I would have watercolor paper stretched and on a board. I had sketchbooks of nice drawing paper that I would prime with an undercolor so it would be more interesting to draw on. I'd have all of my dip pens and my fountain pens filled with India ink and ready to go, plus a nice pot of India ink. I'd pack a lunch. I'd get up in the morning. I'd make my coffee, throw it into a thermos, drink a cup on the porch, and then get in my car and drive. And it was different. I would usually spend I spent a week at West Quoddy Head, actually a couple weeks at West Quoddy Head drawing that place, and another week at Cobscook Bay drawing around there and doing paintings. I did a lot of drawings in Machias. I did a lot of drawings and paintings of the bridge and the waterfalls there. Then I would, I'd go out. I'd be out at 6 in the morning, and I would be coming home around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the process was pretty simple. I would take everything out of the sketchbooks, throw them around the living room, and look at them. And I would sort things into a pile of, yes, I can sell this now. No, I can't sell this yet, and never gonna be sold. So anything that was in the yes pile that I can sell now, I had a little photography set up, and I would immediately take photos of them. And, so I would do one large photo of it at a distance, one close-up detail photo, and then a couple of other shots. All of that would get loaded up to eBay with a brief description of the location of the drawing or the painting, as well as who I was and information about myself as an artist. Prices always started at 10 cents plus shipping and handling for my pen and ink drawings. Watercolor paintings, I think I started out at $5. And literally every day of every week, I was putting artwork up on eBay. I almost always had around 15 to 20 drawings and paintings up, as well as little driftwood sculptures that I would make up on eBay. That some of the paintings would go for asking price, 10 cents plus shipping and handling. And back then, shipping and handling was only a couple of bucks. I think priority mail back then, which was all I ever used, was $2.50 to ship anything anywhere in the US. And it was much cheaper to ship worldwide back then. Anyway, that, I paid my rent and I paid my electric bill that way because I was constantly working. So similar to getting my butt into the chair, I was getting myself out there. I was drawing en plein air. And it was wonderful. There was a lot to the habit that I had created, is that it was constant hustle. It was constant work. It was non-stop work. I was up at 5 a.m. I was in the car by 6. I was on location usually by 7:30. I was making art. I was hiking and making art every day. Monday through Sunday. 7 days a week, I was out there drawing, painting, and creating. And, it was fabulous. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about it. It's one of those things that when I talk about it in glowing terms because it was a great time in my life. I would come home, I would put things on eBay, things would sell, I would package them up and get them out in the mail. It was great. There is nothing more satisfying as an artist than selling my artwork and getting notes from people saying this is even better than it looked on the website. I love it. It looks great in my living room, and here it is in a frame on my wall. Or one of the comments that somebody sent me was like, I went to West Quoddy Head. I had tons of photographs, but this drawing you did of the lighthouse really captures what the lighthouse looked like to me back then. So there's nothing more fabulous than the feeling that gives you. And I'm sure it's going to be the same with writing once my writing gets out there in the world. But it took a lot of work to be able to pay my bills with the proceeds from my artwork. It was hard. And I'm not going to lie and pretend that it was easy. It was fabulous, but it was so much work, so much hustle. And I had to be regimented in what I was doing. I had to be out the door by a certain time. I had to, make so many pieces of artwork in a day because I needed to make enough money to pay my rent over that summer. I loved it, but it was a ton of work. And I think that's what, now I don't have, I own my own home. Technically I think the bank owns it until I pay it off. But, I have a mortgage. I have, the consideration that my partner is on my health insurance. And I don't have the sort of simple life that I had back then as a single young person with renting an apartment that was owned or is owned by families still. It's just not a reality that I'm looking at right now. And, I'm not saying that I'll never get to a point in my life again where I'm not having a day job and where I'm not writing full time or I'm not making art full time. I hold that as a potential, as a possibility for me because I was able to do it at one point in my life. And it is an unbelievably fabulous feeling. And I think that part of my inability to structure my time now is because my unstructured time almost always falls on a transition period in my life. And I know that I'm someone who does not do well with transitions. It goes along with having an anxiety issue. It's part of anxiety is that constant questioning and feeling like an imposter, but also not transitioning from one part of life into another part of life well. Changing jobs is a difficult thing for me. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at in the last episode, less so than I need the job for structure, yes, because I don't do well with unstructured time now as I am in my life. Do I hope at some point that I'm able to do this full time and be my own boss again? Absolutely. Yeah, I want that to be a possibility for me. Do I think it's a reality? Not for a really long frickin' time. The reality of my life right now is that I've got this mortgage. I have to pay it. And, that's just life. But anyway, those are choices that I've made that I think are really, really good for me. And, your mileage may vary. Maybe for you, leaving your job and doing this full time is what's going to make your life be fabulous. But like I said, I always look back to that summer and think if I was able to structure my time in the same way as I was back then, I would be writing full time. No, there's no doubt in my mind that if I were capable of doing that, now I would do it. But anyway, I digress because I think I've gotten my counterpoint across. And now I want to do my check-in, my weekly check-in. I have written 7 of 7 days this week. My average is a little lower. I think I hit 500 or so for the week, with 4,362 words for the week. I might get in another writing session tonight. I'm recording this on Sunday to output tomorrow morning on Monday, or today for those of you who are listening. And I'm pretty happy with that. It still feels really good. I've had some really, really difficult writing sessions because the scenes have been really hard and they haven't been flowing. Also, as anyone who struggles with seasonal allergies who lives in this area, oh my goodness. My allergies have been kicking my butt. Literally wake up in the morning wanting to drive my head into the pillow and maybe rip my nose off of my face. Really rough. And a lot of my friends and family who also suffer from allergies have also been really struggling. So I know I'm not alone in my allergy struggles, but it makes it really hard to write when my face is in pain. This week's pod image is one I created. If you'd like to have your image as the week's pod image, label your pic with the hashtag manuscriptingpod on Instagram. Every week I'll look around, I'll look at the hashtag, and if I would like to use yours, I'll hit you up via PM, and I'll give you a shout out on the podcast with a big thanks. So in terms of the spotlight, I would like to bring the spotlight to the RSVP group on Facebook. So as many of you know, I really struggle with social media. I love it and I hate it. And one of the things I would like to get down to is maybe checking in with Facebook once a day. But RSVP and the Erasables group are both fabulous groups on Facebook, and they're pretty much the only reason I stay with Facebook. And so I posed a question to RSVP about different group and platforms that aren't Facebook based for having discussions and also archiving them, because for those of you who haven't followed me for a long time or just finding me through this podcast or through RSVP, I used to run a Ning group about art journaling, and I really enjoy the setup of Ning forums. I'm not going to use it because I think Ning, I'm not sure how they're doing financially, and I'm not sure. Anyway, I find that sort of forum-based discussion group a little old-fashioned. I love the fact that it archives discussions. You can create forum topics and things like that. And I kind of want something that does that, but also has the rotating chat feature that Facebook has. And there have been a bunch of suggestions, and I really want something that is based on our own website, But it doesn't look like that's going to be... I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen, but there have been a lot of really great suggestions, and Andy Welfley of the Erasables group suggested one in particular, and so keep an eye out on my Twitter and Facebook now that I'm talking about getting away from those things. I'm going to create basically a forum for this group somewhere else, and Andy gave me some really great suggestions, so I'm probably going to check that out. There are a few that I would like to use. Discord is probably one possibility. Spectrum.chat is another possibility, but I haven't decided on anything yet. I'm trying to get into the features. But anyway, I wanted to put a spotlight on that, and I really wanted to thank Andy Welfley for his fabulous suggestions. He's always a font of information. So anyway, thank you to Andy. So I wanted to do some shout-outs for everyone who's been really supportive or who have messaged me via private message. Justin, I'm so glad that the small word count goals are helping you out and keeping you from beating yourself up. You got in 200 more words that day than you had before, and doesn't it feel great? I know it feels really great to me that I'm getting in 300 or 500 words or whatever I'm getting in. Even when I was doing 100 words, or that was my goal, it feels really good to get in some words, and just really great. So that makes me super happy for you, Justin, and I hope it continues to help you work. And also Christine from the Manuscripting Pod group, you'll get through it, man. I mean, it's hard, but hopefully you get out of your slump and you are able to work those beats that you've been writing. And I love that you keep posting and that you're writing. I get inspiration by seeing that other people are writing and that they post their word counts on the site. So Christine, thank you for posting even when you're having a rough day. I really appreciate it. Finally, thank you for supporting the show, everyone who's been listening. If you want to continue to show your support for the show, head on over to your favorite location and leave a review, particularly Apple Podcasts. That really seems to help people find the show. If you've left a review, or maybe you don't want to engage with Apple, share the show on your favorite or least favorite social media location. If you want to support me in other ways, head on over to Ko-fi. It's linked in the show notes. Feel free to find me on social media at Original Elsie Harper on most locations. You can find the site over at manuscriptingpod.com. I'm also loading all of the episodes a little more slowly than perhaps is optimum to YouTube. So if you would like to listen and watch a static image on YouTube, you can. So you can find it at Comfortable Shoes Stud. It's an unfortunate typo that I didn't know I was running out of letters, and I didn't catch it when I created the channel. So I have been Comfortable Shoes Stud for a very long time on YouTube. So anyway, Comfortable Shoes Stud on YouTube. And thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Now I'm going to get my butt in the chair, my fingers on the keys, and get writing some more. Bye, everyone. Hey, everyone. Just a quick heads up. Next week's episode is going to be a day late. I'm going to be traveling. I'll be recording the podcast while traveling. We'll see how that goes. So it'll be up Tuesday instead of Monday, and I'll hopefully be talking about what it's like to write while traveling and trying to eke out some time when you're with family. So anyway, the show's going to be late. Thanks for listening.